Hey guys, it's Kevin review for Army of the Dead. What Army of the Dead is essentially about is basically we center on this group of mercenaries. This is a group that has been together for a while. They've pulled off a lot of heists before, but they've kind of separated for a while because there's been this zombie outbreak that's happened within Las Vegas, and, you know, they're kind of going through all of that together. They're approached by the casino owner, who basically tells them that he is planning to tear down the entire casino. He's going to blow it to bits because that area has been quarantined, but before he does that, there is a lot of cash that is within the building overall, and so they are tasked to get in there and rob this casino, but of course get out without surviving the day and, overcoming this zombie apocalypse overall. Army of the Dead, I was very excited for this film. To me, this seemed like the kind of summer blockbuster that we really have been lacking, the kind of film that is really going to remind us that cinema is very much back. It's one of those, it's one of those kind of films, and I was really pulling for this one. Now, going into this movie, I had not seen Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead, but before I saw this one, I wanted to give that a watch, and that film actually holds up really well, I think. It's a lot of fun, but it also is, it finds a way to be generally unnerving, but also be a lot of fun. It has a lot of entertainment value within it, and I think it's one of the few horror remakes that actually does work. It's not as good as the original, but it still is a pretty solid remake, and after seeing that, I became even more excited to see what he was going to pull off here. And so after watching this film, I could not be more impressed, because Army of the Dead is easily, I think, the best zombie apocalypse film that I have seen in quite a bit. It is so much fun, and just it knows it's the best kind of summer blockbuster in pretty much every aspect. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And going into this film, that is definitely, I think, one of the biggest draws for sure. I mean, the cast here is absolutely insane, and really everyone ends up delivering. I don't think there is a single weak link in the bunch here. I think everyone did a really great job, but it is clear when watching this movie that the absolute standout and really the glue that holds this entire film together is Dave Bautista, who, let me just say right now, going into this film, you probably think you have an idea of what this character is going to be. He's going to be really goofy. He's going to be, making all these wisecracks and things like that, but that's actually not what he does in this film. He actually gave a far more emotionally effective performance than I was really expecting, and it's really impressive because I feel like Bautista is one of the only wrestlers turned actors that is really a master of, that is really taking advantage of the fact that he's an actor now. He wants to dabble into as many different projects as he can, but also as many different characters as he can, and here he really gets to show off his range as an actor. This is someone who has gone through a personal tragedy within this apocalypse himself, and it's kind of changed him and hardened him as a person, and you really do get to see that come out full-fledged, especially towards the latter half of this film. I mean, he really gets to excel, and I think gives probably the best performance we've seen of his career so far. It really makes me very excited to see what he's gonna do in, say, like Dune and things like that, and just really, again, just overall, I think, it really heightens my love for him as an actor. I already really enjoyed him as an actor. I thought that he was very entertaining. I thought that he was very likable in that way. But this film shows he generally is someone with a lot of, he generally has a lot more range than I think people have given him credit for, and it's just such an impressive performance overall. There's a lot of great performances in this movie, but I don't think anyone comes quite as close to Bautista in this film. He absolutely carried this entire film for me. Now, someone else that does a really good job, though, is Ella Purnell, who I really liked here a lot. She plays Dave Bautista's daughter, actually, and she does a really strong job here. I think the two of them have some really good chemistry throughout the movie, and I really like what she ended up doing. Omari Hardwick, I thought, gave a really good performance here for sure. I definitely was a fan of him. He is a lot of fun to watch, but he also has a lot more going on performance-wise than I really was expecting. One of the big standouts for me, someone I've never really seen before, was Nora Arnezeder, who plays the character Lily. She was so badass in this film. I mean, she's one of those characters that you are just so in awe of the tenacity and just her ability to do the things that she can do in this movie. I mean, I think she just did such a great job overall. I really enjoyed her performance throughout this film. The big one that a lot of people are wondering about is Notaro, which I will address the elephant in the room right now. Yes, obviously, Notaro replaced a different actor in this film. Chris D'Elia was originally supposed to play this role, and so I know a lot of people are wondering if it was going to be jarring. I really didn't notice it that much, I gotta say. I did not really notice much in terms of the change. This did not feel jarring in the slightest. I feel like Notaro fit into this role really well. She's a lot of fun to watch. She's very much the one that is, you know, wisecracking jokes and things like that. And I thought she did a really good job within this role. I thought she was just a lot of fun to watch here, and I really enjoyed her performance. Matthias Schweighöfer is really good. Raúl Costello. I mean, really this entire cast, everyone gives a really strong performance. Like I said, I don't think there's a weak link in the bunch. Just overall, a very talented ensemble. It's clear everyone is having a lot of fun, and that really does radiate, I think, off the entire screen. So now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that is the other thing that I think is very interesting about this film, because unlike Snyder's previous film, Dawn of the Dead, Snyder's kind of doing everything here. There's other people he's working with, but a lot of this really is his own film. This very much does not need a Snyder cut in any way, because he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I think his directing is really impressive here, because what he's able to pull off, it's not very easy, because essentially, yes, he is writing a film about a zombie apocalypse. He's trying to write one, and it can be very intense. It can get very brutal at times, but he also is trying to write this very fun heist film, and the way he's able to seamlessly combine those two things together, he does a really good job with. This film has a lot of fun with itself. It's not afraid to just kind of have fun and not take itself too seriously, but it still knows to take itself seriously at points. There's a lot more heart to this film than I think a lot of people are expecting, and I think he pulled it off really well. So I was very impressed by Snyder's direction here. I think what he did really well in this film is he looked at the things that really worked in Dawn of the Dead, and he just pushed it a bit more here. He knows that, you know, he really takes all the fun, he takes all that brutality, and he really just puts it in full force, and I think he does such a great job when it comes to the directing here. I was really I was really happy to see what he ended up doing. You can see how confident he is in this project, and I think overall it's definitely some of his most well-realized directing today, especially when you take into account how many films have fucked him over recently. This is definitely one of his best films, I think, that he's directed. I really liked what he ended up doing here. Now, getting into the screenplay for this film, that's something else that I think this film does a really good job with, because, yeah, like I said, the movie is a lot of fun, but there's a lot more going on than you would think, especially when it comes to the heist itself. I mean, not only is this a very dangerous thing for them to go into this Las Vegas casino, but the film geniusly comes up with a lot of reasons why this is going to be so hard for them, because this film takes place over a period of years where this apocalypse has been going on for a long time, which that's something else that I really enjoy. This isn't one of those things where they're like, you know, still in the early stages of the apocalypse. No, they really are kind of like in the thick of things. They know exactly what's going on. They're to the point where they're like very cynical and like making jokes about it. They know exactly what's going on at this point, but they're still not fully prepared, because these zombies are far more advanced than you really would expect them to be. And I thought that was a really interesting spin on what they decided to do with the screenplay here. I thought that was definitely really well done, but the characters themselves are far better than you really would expect, especially when it comes to our main character of Scott Ward. I mean, there's so many more dimensions to this character, because like I said, he has gone through a personal tragedy within the apocalypse, and it's one that he is constantly thinking about. It's kind of eating away at him. He wishes that he could have done something to prevent it, and it's also put him at odds with his daughter Kate, who she's taken a very different path in life. These two are kind of estranged in that way, and they're gradually coming back together, but you can see there's still a lot of friction between these two, and that makes for one of the more compelling storylines throughout this entire film. You want to see these two make amends, but you're not sure if it's really going to happen, and I found myself very invested in just these two characters alone. You know, you want things to work out for them, but you don't know if it's going to. And Kate as a character as well, she's not just the daughter of Scott. I've seen a lot of people knock on this character, saying that she's dumb and things like that. I actually really like what they did with this character, because she's someone who is far more interested in the humanitarian efforts to help people out during this apocalypse and things like that. And you can see how that really clashes with Scott's much more by the book and survival type mentality that he's had throughout the years. And I think they do a really good job with that. I really enjoyed their dynamic throughout this film, but there's other dynamics that I think work really well here. The character of Dieter, for example, is so much fun in this film. Something that the original Dawn of the Dead did really well is it had this sense of wit and fun to it. Something as simple as the scene where they are talking about the different celebrities that may or may not be zombified. Stuff like that is just so much fun in that in Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, and gratefully there are very much scenes like that here. The character of Dieter is so much fun in this movie. He's someone that you can see, yes, he's someone that is cracking the code. He's supposed to get them in, but he also is very much a wimp in that way. I mean, he's someone that's constantly in fear. He's not someone that's really well equipped to take on a task like this, and you can really see how this really does start to get at him, but also the way he bonds with the character of Vanderhoof, played by Omari Hardwick, who is someone that is a little bit more experienced. I really like their dynamic overall. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very reminiscent of the dynamic that we got in Dawn of the Dead, and I thought they did a really good job with these two characters. I thought they were just a lot of fun to watch overall, and like I said, some of the things that this film is trying to tackle, I think they do a really good job with, but also just the scope of what they're in. Again, it's presented really well. I haven't talked about this yet, but the opening scene of this movie, that alone is worth the price of admission, I feel like. I mean, the opening scene here is truly next level in terms of zombie apocalypse films. They do such a great job of presenting the actual stakes of what's going on, but also just very quickly introducing you to all of these characters, and I think that's something they did a really great job with. But I also appreciate, again, the focus that the film has on some of these characters. The film cares just as much about the heist as it does its characters, and I think that's something that was just done really well. I really enjoyed the screenplay a lot here. The scenarios that these characters just get themselves into, you're constantly hoping they're able to get out of this, and I think they did a really great job with it overall. So I very much enjoyed the screenplay in this film. But the cinematography is something else that is very much noteworthy, because Zack Snyder actually did all the cinematography to this film, and I think it really does work. Yes, he definitely does a lot of wides. He does do a lot of wides for sure. I know a lot of people have said that, but I think he does a really good job at capturing the real scope of this world and just the doom and gloom of everything. He definitely does a really great job of that, especially when it comes to actually seeing the killings of this film and going and what they're up against. I mean, holy fuck, this film does not hold back at all. There's one killing especially, and I was just astonished with how far they really went. I mean, it was so brutal to watch, but it's absolutely glorious, and I loved what he ended up doing in terms of cinematography here, and just the look and feel of everything. You really do feel like you're in this environment. You feel like you're kind of stuck with them. It does take a while to actually get to that casino, but again, just that opening scene alone, they do such a great job of setting up what this casino is like, what's really going to happen, that when they eventually get there, you're not sure how this is going to work. You're not sure if they're going to be able to pull this off, and I think Snyder did a really good job when it came to the cinematography of this film. I was very impressed by what he ended up doing. I would assume that because they shot a lot of this during the pandemic, that he kind of struggled to find someone, but I don't really think they needed anyone else because I think he did a good job with the cinematography here overall. The score here by Tom Holkenborg, once again, does a really good job. I think it gives the film a very tense feel, and I think he definitely did a really strong job with that. I was overall impressed by his score in this film and the editing. That's something else I've seen a lot of people be a bit divided with, is this film is, 2.5 hours, and did it really need to be? I will say there's definitely some parts that they could have maybe shaved off, but I actually was impressed by how fast this film was moving, because while the film is 2.5 hours, I didn't feel it for a second. I was very invested in what was going on. The first half of this movie, it takes a long time for them to actually pull off this heist. The first half is really you just getting to see all of these characters and, what they've been up to in the past several years or so. And I thought it was a really good way to get you introduced to everyone. So once they're in that situation, you're that much more invested with what's going on. And I thought they did a good job when it came to the editing of this film overall. That being said, this film is not perfect. There definitely are some things that do bring it down for sure. One of them being, there are some characters in this movie that I just felt kind of got the short end of the stick. Raul Costello especially, he's introduced and I found him to be very intriguing. He's like a vlogger of sorts. You want to know more about him, but they really don't dive all that deep into his character. I feel like a lot of his story kind of got shortchanged, and I just found myself wanting to know more about this character, but they didn't really do much for him. Also, there are clearly some characters in this film that are really just here to die. They don't really have much of a purpose in this film aside from that, and that was a little bit disappointing. There's a character that's introduced, and I'm like, okay, I want to see more of what he's about, but I want to see more of what this character is about, but the character goes away before they can really do anything with them, and that was a bit disappointing to me. I wanted to know more about what they did. And lastly, there is a plot element that is introduced later on in the film that just felt very tired. It's one of those things that we've seen a lot of films do, and I felt like a film like this did not need to resort to such a cheap plot. I think there was a much easier way to go about this, and they just didn't really go for it. I think there was more they could have done, but it just felt very surface level, and compared to everything else the movie was doing, I just didn't really feel like this particular conflict fit into this film, and it made things feel a bit more disposable than I think they really were going for. Other than that, though, Army of the Dead is pretty much everything I could want in a summer blockbuster. It's a ton of fun to watch. It has some really strong performances, a lot of really good characterization, more than I really would expect, some really brutal zombie killings, a great score by Tom Holkenborg, a great soundtrack as well. Like I said, the opening scene, they play a cover of Viva Las Vegas, and it just perfectly sets the tone for this movie. It finds a way to combine a very tense and suspenseful zombie film with a very fun heist film. Both of those things are combined very nicely here. It's not perfect. There definitely are some areas where it can drag. There are a few characters that do get shortchanged, but considering what we usually get with zombie apocalypse films and how just disposable and repetitive a lot of them can be, this feels very refreshing. This feels like something really different, and I really do think this is a real winner for Zack Snyder. Like I said, there's a lot of films that he's made that I don't think he's really gotten the respect for. I think there are a lot of films that he hasn't really gotten to show his true talents, but this film, all of that is really in display, and what is promised, I think, could be a really interesting franchise. I know there's already a prequel and a TV series that's been announced for Netflix, but I really do think this could end up going somewhere. I think this could be a really interesting franchise if done well. This is definitely everything I think you could want in a summer blockbuster, and I am going to give Army of the Dead overall an A-. I gotta say, though, I really do wish I was able to see this movie in theaters, because just certain scenes in this movie, again, as intense as they were, as much as I was into it, I'm like, I would be that much more invested if I got to see this in theaters. And I know only certain theaters were showing it. Unfortunately, there wasn't a theater close to my area that was, but I really wish that was the case, because this is absolutely the kind of film that theaters were made for. This is definitely the kind of movie that's made to be seen on the biggest screen possible, and I'm just glad that we're back in a time where movies like that are coming out, because this is the kind of film that is made for that, and I think it definitely does take advantage of that for sure. But over, guys, to my review, Army of the Dead. The moment you guys saw this movie, all left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.